Blake, I think you're
that's weird. It didn't automatically unmute me. I'm going to try that again. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by the good folks at Duck Camp, where they're sponsoring throughout tomorrow's big game. And speaking of tomorrow's big game, guys, less than 28 hours away. So tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking. Give us your predictions. We would love to see that. And let's just jump right into it here, guys, if I can get this to come up here. Oh, I think the hot topic is what Cam Scatteraboo had to say yesterday. And so we're just going to go right into it. First off, he says, there's nobody out there that can stop me. Of course, he had a little bit more to say, and I'm going to play you a video real quick, and we'll listen to it.
Because, we prove people wrong. We've done it all year, and knowing where we are and where we stand as a football team was a big point of that. And, that last game we handled business when business needed to be handled. And when that happened, it makes you feel better about yourselves and what we really have as a football team.
So how pissed off are you coming into 2 touchdown underdogs?
I'm not too upset. We've been underdogs the whole season, so I'm not too worried about it.
Your thoughts?
He's not too worried about it. I'm live here at the College Football Hall of Fame. It opens here in the next 45 minutes or so. We're on the second floor. Come on by and join us if you want. But as far as Cam Scatteraboo is concerned, look, he has been stopped at times this year, or at least limited at times this year. So I don't know where he gets this nobody can stop me. The bravado and confidence, though, Jerry and Blake, that we see from Arizona State is palpable, carried over by its head coach, a young whippersnapper of sorts, Kenny Dillingham. We'll see if they can live up to it tomorrow, because this Arizona State team is going to face the best defense they've faced this year and probably will face for the next couple of years. Let's see how it goes. But I think the Longhorns, based on what we heard from them yesterday in their press conferences, I think the Longhorns feel like they're ready, as they should be.
Yeah, so I got a few comments on that. I think one, anybody that's ever been to the Arizona State campus, you get a lot of confidence walking around there. You get some real pretty pats on the back there. So you look in the mirror and you see a 15 every morning. And I get it. But for those that have been to Arizona State, know what I'm talking about. But the Cam Scatteraboo hasn't been stopped thing. And I think, I appreciate it because it's fun. It makes the games fun. I like it. I love the players' confidence. I mean, I come on here, I talk trash. It's fun. It's what we do, right? And these guys have to be confident players. And I said the same thing about, it's like I said last night about Scatteraboo. He's like a boxer that got knocked out and he doesn't remember when. Like, it's like, dude, you've had 73 against Kansas State, 75 against Cincinnati, 60 against Texas Tech, and 24 for 62 against Texas State. I mean, you've been stopped. It's like it's like the Iowa State game in the Arizona, who's terrible, 2 terrible run defenses, has pushed the confidence meter to a 30 on a 10 scale. I'm like, look, and you need it, you have to have it. I get it, but you have been stopped. I mean, the reality is, almost over a third of your games you had less than 100 yards rushing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so. And then there's the rush defenses Arizona State's played this year. I believe their average ranking is around 78 or 79. So, again, as a player, you're not supposed to look at those things. It doesn't matter to you. You see, when you look in the mirror, you see the dude, right? That's the way you're supposed to be. But we're here to talk about reality sometimes.
Reality. I hope there's a reality check tomorrow here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Jerry and Blake, other news that came in yesterday from the Longhorns, Isaiah Bond cleared. He looks good out at practice, according to CJ Vogel, who was out there. Cam Williams still treading lightly, I guess, or gingerly, I would say, on that right knee of his. So I think Trevor Gooseby most likely going to get the start. If I had to be a betting man tomorrow, that'll happen. Everybody else, though, pretty healthy for the Longhorns. Kelvin Banks still in his ankle brace, but I think that's precautionary more than anything. He played the full game against Clemson, seemed fine out there. I would add this. Newcomers are on the practice field as well. You mentioned yesterday, and CJ brought us some video of Lance Jackson, Michael Terry, as well as Justice Terry, all the freshman 3 early enrollees, they're already working out with the team, as well as Cole Brevard, the defensive tackle, and Brad Spence, the linebacker, the Arkansas linebacker, as well as the Purdue defensive tackle, are now working out with the team as well here in Atlanta. They are all in black practice jerseys, which means they are inactive for the game, but they will be able to be on the sidelines and with the team and starting to get indoctrinated into the Longhorn way.
And I've said before, I think one of the things you look at, here's a benefit of a college football playoff if you're in it, and you're in it like to the semifinal at least. These guys almost get 2 spring practices. I mean, that's a crazy number when you think about how many practices Lance Jackson is going to get, because I think he was the first one to get on the practice field. How many practices he's going to get if Texas wins this game as they're favored to win and goes on and plays in a national semifinal game on July 10th? That's four more practices probably for Lance Jackson, 4 more days working with PK, sitting in the film room, getting what all this is about, going through the practice setting. I mean, he's going to be over 10 practices. And if you're one of the teams that plays for the national championship, you definitely get 2 full spring practices. I mean, so Cole Brevard, if Texas keeps advancing in this, he could get 2 spring practices with Texas, essentially. Justice Terry, same thing. Brad Spence, same thing. Now, that's really invaluable and we talk about Terry and Lance Jackson and Michael Terry because it's the first look at those guys in Longhorn gear, right? And because they're part of the #1 recruiting class. But for Brad Spence and Cole Brevard, that's huge. I mean, that's huge. January 10th, Jerry. Yeah. Did I say July? January 10th. I mean, that is double-digit practices for these guys. That is a big deal. Then you have Torrey Beckton's off season. Then you have spring practice. Then you have Torrey Beckton's off season before August practices. I mean, these guys, that's the benefit of being in a college football playoff there with your newcomers.
And guys, we got a super chat that I think is an interesting question I want to ask y'all from Juan Garza. And he says, after Sark's first year, did you all know that he was going to be the right guy for the job? Obviously. When did you all know?
Not after year 1 for me. I'd be lying if I said that I had this idea or thought process. I think after year 2, I had a good inclination because he put together 2 back-to-back recruiting classes, including getting a commitment from Arch Manning. So after year 2, I felt pretty confident. The way he finished year 1, not the 5 and 7 per se, but with the recruits that he did, then leapfrogged into the next year. And I think I got a sense that he was paying attention to what he needed to. And actually, look, Texas had been. I hate to say this because I have friends that were on people I know that were on the team and offensive linemen from that era of those last decade and a half. And so you don't want to overstate it, but at the same time, they weren't necessarily of the caliber of players that Texas needed to be recruiting or signing and then playing to take Texas back. When he got the recruits with the offensive line, I said, okay, I think he can play the NIL game. I think he can coach, and I think he can get it done. Now, that didn't mean that he was going to end up being in 2 consecutive college football playoffs for me. It meant, okay, Texas is in the game at least. Now he's got to go prove it. I think the last 2 years, obviously, he's proven that. He's the right guy for the Texas job at this point.
Yeah, mine's similar to Bobby. It's in 2 pieces, though. One, the initial staff he hired was built well to recruit where he needed to, but I didn't know Sark's recruiting strategy at that point. How they didn't go on B targets, how they stuck with their guys in that 2022 recruiting class. That one convinced me from a recruiting standpoint, okay, he has a really good plan here. He didn't go to the B list of guys on the offensive line because if he had, they wouldn't be playing today. And they probably wouldn't have been playing in the college football playoff last year when you think about Kelvin Banks had committed elsewhere. What if you just gone to your B list to tackle and you're like, you know what? It's not going to work. We got to get guys we can develop in here. Well, you wouldn't have the Outland and Lombardi winner right now. Cam Williams committed to Oregon. Probably wouldn't be here right now if you'd filled those spots with the B list of guys. So the fact that they stuck on those guys, Neto's recruitment played out a long time. DJ Campbell played out a long time, even though he signed in December and fooled some people, played out a long time. Texas could have not hit the panic button, but said, man, we can't wait on all of these guys. We got to go fill 2 or 3 of these offensive line spots. Then where would you be right now? So the recruiting strategy really impressed. Defensively, I was not convinced. I'm not going to sit here you give up 57 to Kansas, you're going to have to show me a lot. Okay. I'm just not, I can't get there. 57 in Austin, I can't get there. No chance. So you had to prove a lot to me on that one. I'm just being real on that. Then the other one was for Sark with me was, hire of a Tashard Choice. That was from a football and recruiting standpoint. We didn't know Choice really well, but one thing that you do know in this business is when you ask another college coach, what do you think about that guy? And you ask 2 or 3 of them, they'll have the same answer. You know that Sark made a strong hire for multiple reasons. So the hires he's at, I think the addition of Johnny Nansen this last year is awesome. He has proven that he knows who to hire for the job. Think about prior Texas coaches. When they got the job, they didn't know who to hire. And that almost defines whether these guys have success or not out of the gate. Do you know when you get your big job or your dream job or whatever, do you know who to hire?
Or they made comfort hires.
Yeah. If you don't hire the staff needed, you have over initially out of the gate, you have over a 50% chance of failure. And he knew who to hire for this job. And he made strong hires. And look, you're never going to go 9 for 9 on assistants. Very rarely do you go 9 for 9 on assistants when you get a job. So he had to make a couple of changes through there. But I think he's continued to elevate and ascend the program. So from a recruiting standpoint, it was after the first cycle. I said, okay, he's got a plan. I didn't know exactly what the plan was, but I really ended up liking the plan because they were starting to get the players they had to get.
All right, Jerry, I know you got some recruiting news that you're wanting to share with everybody. So let's jump over to that. Then we'll come back to some questions here momentarily.
Yeah, so we're going to play some junior huddle on Diabell, who obviously got injured in that playoff game late in the season. He was the Gatorade Florida Player of the Year. So we're going to watch that because it's always good to watch a quarterback rip people to shreds while we talk about recruiting in the class that he is helping recruit. So first off, I think he'll be throwing again on the field, rehabbing his injury late February, early March. So everything's really going well for him now. He's back in the weight room working out. He's posted a couple of videos. So I think late February, early March for him back out getting after it, right? So he's gonna be good to go here in 2 or 3 months. Javian Osborne, running back, top 150 type player in the country out of Forney, really explosive kid to the second level. Told me January 25th is when Texas has invited him down. So that sounds like the junior day for Texas, January 25th. That makes a lot of sense because Notre Dame has it the same day. I think you're going to see these college football playoff teams. And now if they lose, could it change? Potentially, but you're going to see January 25th be a popular junior day for these teams that are in the college football playoff because it's hard to sit there and plan. You're planning to play until the 20th. It's hard to sit there and plan and invite kids. Hey, if we lose, come up on the 17th. And if we win, come up on the 20th. You're not doing that. So January 25th looks like the junior day. That doesn't mean you couldn't have some visits sprinkled in if you happen to get bumped off in the next couple of weeks. But a junior day setup, setting up the whole thing, sending out the invites, talking to the kids about it. It looks like January 25th is going to be the day. Same thing for Notre Dame and a couple others that I'm hearing right now that I don't think have been publicly confirmed by kids. So that's one there. Then some other news. We had somebody in the chat was talking about it yesterday. But Kosi Okpala, the 4-star linebacker edge out of Katy or Houston Mady Creek, whichever one unless you're looking at the zip code, it's Houston, but I call it Katy Made Creek. Kosiak Paula is likely going to announce late March, early April. So that's going to be a 26 guy who's a really good player. And I think it's Texas or Texas A&M right now for him, Oklahoma and Alabama in it. But I think Texas has at least a 50-50 shot here. So that one looks like it could wrap up earlier if that timeline holds, right? I mean, the timelines have to hold. But so we were talking about the other day, 80-90% of those kids will make decisions leading into their senior year in July, August. But there's going to be a few maybe that decide a little earlier. And Kosiak Paula is a guy that Johnny Nansen and those guys are in contact with constantly, and they really like him. He was at the Georgia game and with the 2 A&M games this year. So a little bit there. On Diabell, the one thing that was interesting, I kind of asked him, who are some of the guys you're recruiting? And he was like, Turntine, Jalen Lott, Caden Finley. And he said a couple others that I'm, not going to talk about. But the guys that you would think, the Caden Finleys, the Jalen Lotts, the John Turntines are at the top of Diabell's list in 2026.
Good stuff there. All right, guys, before we move on, Bobby, I'm going to tell everyone out there about Duck Camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to Duck Camp for sponsoring college football game week here, playoff game week. Duck Camp is made for people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, and guess what? Football to watch. They like doing all that stuff, so they built a company centered on it, based in Austin and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. Duck Camp gear has been tested from the backcountry of Alaska to the dove fields of Texas. It will stand up to the toughest of conditions, but also happily sit down beside a fire and drink a few cold ones if that's more your speed. Some of their features include iconic game series hats that feel as timeless as the hats found in your grandpa's garage. Be sure to check out the new mallard and pointer hats in the clay colorway, pretty much our cherished burnt orange color. Here's the great seasons, y'all. Yes, hunting and football. Shop hunting and fishing gear at duckcamp.com. If you didn't get some for Christmas, check it out, duckcamp.com. It really is good stuff. I wear it all the time. My wife loves it.
Thank you, Bobby. And let's jump over to some more super chats here. We got one from Clay K, and we kind of touched on this yesterday a little bit. He says, good morning, guys. I haven't heard much on this, but how did Nansen's Arizona defense fare against Arizona State last year?
Gave up 23 points, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 23 points. The difference is this. They did not have Sam Levitt at quarterback for Arizona State last year. So it's really kind of questionable, I guess, what it really meant a year ago. I do believe that you look at the rushing yards they gave up, pretty heavy. But this game was out of hand early. And so I don't really think it's a good understanding or gives a good proxy for what we'll see on Wednesday. Plus, I still think Texas personnel is better than Arizona's was a year ago. So
yeah.
I mean, there's also that to consider.
Well, this is what we've talked about with Kenny Dillingham and giving him the ultimate credit, because there you look. I mean, they were terrible on defense, gave up 619 yards, 527 through the air. I mean, that's a massive number. But Arizona State offensively, they weren't even close to the team that they put out this year. And I'm not sitting here saying anything about the game coming up tomorrow, but I'm just talking the reality of Arizona State last year. Literally, Rashad is gone at quarterback, and they're better for it. Scatterbo had 108 in that game. But wide receiver-wise, Troy O'Meara was their leading receiver in that game. 3 catches, 38 yards. Jalen Conyers, tight end, who transferred out. I think he's at Tech now. I can't keep up with some of these guys. 3 catches, 11 yards. What made them this year was Sam Levitt coming in, Jordan Tyson, Melquan Stovall. I mean, the kid that transferred in, the little scat back transferred in from USC. They added a lot of weapons to their team. So it's kind of like Bobby said, you can't really compare the two because Arizona State is so different this year, personnel wise, than what they were last year. Added a couple of pieces in the portal on the offensive line, which they were really bad at that year. So Kenny Dillingham's done a great job there. So, but one thing I will say is Johnny Nansen has scouted these guys a lot. He knows their screen game. I think that's the area more so than looking at a box score, looking at a result from last year. He may have a full understanding more so than the Texas staff as a whole, defensive staff as a whole, about Dillingham's screen game.
And then we're going to go to this one from Whiplash. Thank you, Whiplash, for your super chat. He says, get the 2-score lead early and unleash the defense. If we can do this and be aggressive, then Jerry's prediction could be close.
How important do you think a quick start is for Texas? I don't think it's necessary. I think it would be welcome. Anything that puts a Arizona State team or its offense into a more predictable situation, I think, is very helpful. Jerry, you agree with that?
Yeah, look, and this is one of the things too. I bet Sark takes the ball if he wins the toss in this game. Says, "Let's go." What do you got? I bet he takes the ball. I could be wrong, but that's just my thought. I think he sees a defense he thinks he can get after, and he'll take the ball. But I do think so. Like Clemson scored right first, boom, great drive. Yeah, I could see Arizona State. They've had 20 days to script, right? If they don't have a successful first drive, I'm going to be like, wow. They should hit some plays early in the script against. It wouldn't shock me if Arizona State Texas won the toss if they deferred. Arizona State went down and scored like Clemson did. They've had a long time to prepare. They have a good quarterback, good running back. That Texas came right back though after that. That's to your point, Bobby. That's the key. Is if you get down 7-0, you come right back. Having success early on against the Arizona State defense, I do think is huge, and getting off to a fast start offensively, a clean start, successful start offensively, I think is big. Because if you can do that early, your talent's going to take over late in this game. I mean, I've harped on it. I want Todd McShay on a podcast. He said Texas has 12 or 13 guys that'll get drafted off this team this year. He said Arizona State has 1. That is a big talent gap in a game like this. And that doesn't count the underclassmen, the Colin Simmons and Anthony Hills of the world, right? Manny Muhammad. That's a big talent gap in this game. So to your point, Bobby, getting off to a fast start against this Arizona State team is huge for Texas. Because, again, in the games like this, if Arizona State gets up 2 scores, man, it starts to feel like an NCAA tournament basketball game. And it feels like the momentum of the winner go home game can cause a lot of pressure on teams. Anybody that's been to an NCAA tournament game, it knows what I'm talking about. You can see that those guys feel the pressure that's supposed to win the game. It's different. So getting off to a fast start, a clean start is good. And for Arizona State, their start obviously is more important than Texas starting this game. If they don't get some pressure on Quinn early in this game, I just can't. I'm not seeing their avenue. They're a low sack per team. They have 21 sacks, outside the top 100 in the country. They're not good at pressure rates either. If they can't get pressure on Quinn early in this game, and Sark has time for his script, and Quinn has 2.5, 3 seconds to get rid of the football. I mean, Arizona State's up against it. So Arizona State needs to have a really fast start in this game, I believe, on defense.
I would say this, based on those stats or that prop bet that Blake put up there, it's clear Vegas or whoever thinks it's going to be an offensive touchdown or a punt for Texas on its first drive. And the prohibitive favorite of Arizona State's first drive, punt.
Big time.
I mean, It's not even close. You look at those stats, minus 140 on a punt for Arizona State versus plus 410 for a touchdown, plus 500 for a field goal attempt, plus 460 for it. I mean, dude, that you just don't see that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's prohibitive. That's like, I don't know. I mean, what would be something similar to that, Blake, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, that big of a swing, if it was closer, I could probably think of something, but I really don't know. I mean, that's like overwhelming favorite. I mean, that's just crazy.
You'd have to put up 140 to get 100 back for them not to punt. Is what it says.
That would be like a line of like Kyle Tucker in the playoffs for the Astros. 410 to hit a homer, 500 hit a homer, 410 to get a double, and negative 140 to strike out. That's kind of what we're looking at. Is Jason Watts in the chat?
Don't be talking about our Astros like that. This is the day for college football today, Jerry. Give me a break.
I was thinking of something in my head that would have been similar.
Nate Russ says the Eagles and Cowboys odds. That's probably true there, Nate. That's
ugly.
Jack with the super chat. Jack says the happiest and best New Year to the OTF family. I'm hoping that Bobby loves that mayo corn dog.
Not happening until January 21st, but I'll eat it if it happens. I absolutely will.
Not bad. It's not.
Real quick, I was thinking about my favorite memory of the A&M Texas rivalry from this year, and it was this still. What's the cover going to be next year? Elko at a craps table? Dave Campbell, say Tepper, if y'all need any ideas, come on.
Oh, man. More super chats, guys. This one from Blake May. Thank you, Blake. He says, wheels up, Atlanta. As always, I'll come see the OTF fam. Blake and Katie from Tennessee. This will be the third state this season to see you guys. He travels as much as you do, Bobby.
I love it. I love it. Guys, if you're out here, the College Football Hall of Fame opens in about 15, 20 minutes here. Come on out here. We're up on the second floor. This place is gorgeous and just a lot of fun. Place to go out and check things out and see what's going on in college football. They have an indoor facility that you can kind of do a punt, pass, kick type thing. They have all kinds of neat displays with. They have a tunnel touchstone, Jerry. You know how people touch, I don't know, Howard's Rock at Clemson and play like a champion today at Notre Dame, or the M Club supports you. They have all those kinds of things here. They call it the tunnel touchdown. That's one of the things I went through today. That was pretty neat. But join us if you would. We'll also be here tomorrow morning on New Year's Day as well. So come out either day. You're available. This would be a perfect place to join us prior to kickoff tomorrow as well.
I think this is a good one. Blake started, but we didn't talk about Jeff Banks did say Bert Auburn is returning next year. He also talked about how he wants Michael Kern to not transfer and stay and just develop, use a redshirt year and develop. So it'll be interesting to see if Kern does do that. I don't have any information one way or the other on that. But Bert Auburn does plan to return next year, and that was confirmed. We talked about that. That was confirmed by Jeff Banks yesterday in coach's media session as well. And we also need to hit on it real quick. I thought what Tashard Choice, the videos on our YouTube here from yesterday was very interesting, guys. That Tashard Choice talked about Trey Wisner, how he's 202 pounds. So again, a guy that carries weight very well because he doesn't look 202 in person. And he said he wants him to get to 210 next year. And if he does, he'll be off to the NFL, essentially what he was saying. Said he did not feel like he had a need for running back in the portal. I think he said choice is good. That's what he said. And then you also had him talking about James Simon and Ricky Stewart. And Ricky Stewart, what he said about Ricky Stewart sounded a lot like Trey Wisner mentality, just to how he is, how he's built, all that. And James Simon, I thought was interesting. He didn't straight up compare him, but he said similarities to Jonathan Brooks. So there's some great comments from Tashard Choice there if you haven't heard him. But yeah, David Parcell, Trey Wisner showed up at 177. He's now 202.
All right. And I'm not even going to. Bobby, read the next super chat.
I think it's in Polish. Says a while ago, Noe Roku, figure it out. Happy New Year. Is that possible?
That is what it means. So I looked it up on Google. I had Google pronounce it to me so I could try to say it, and I listened like 15 times, and it's a no-go.
Did any old timer ever call you a scallywag when you were a kid? That's what I read first in my East Texas IQ. I was like, scallywag.
Hey, Josie, Bobby, or Jerry, are there any more press conferences today? CJ is actually at one right now. Steve Sarkisian's got one coming up right now. I believe that Kenny Dillingham does as well. And we will have that for you here on Texas Football as soon as that is available. Matt, our producer, will put that up for you guys. So, Josie, thanks for the question. I hope that gives you an answer.
All right, Bobby. Well, you're at the College Football Hall of Fame, and I think now would be a great time to tell people about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Attention, Texas football fans. If you love the passion, the rivalries, and the unforgettable moments of college football, then you have to check out the Chick-fil-A College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. Thank you very much for them allowing us to be here today. This place is packed with everything a fan could ask for: legendary artifacts, game-changing moments, interactive exhibits that bring the energy of the game to life. From celebrating Hall of Famers like Earl Campbell, Ricky Williams, Vince Young, to showcasing the rich tradition of Texas football, the Hall is a must-see for every Longhorn fan. And get this, you can step onto the 45-yard indoor pass field to throw passes, kick field goals, and feel like you're part of the game. Plus, with the new Game On AI-powered fan experience, it's the perfect way to immerse yourself into the sport we all love. So don't wait. Visit cfbhall.com to plan your trip. The Hall of Fame is where history meets hype, and trust me, you'll leave feeling even prouder to shout "Hook 'em Horns." Hey, I've got something for you, Jerry and Blake. Who do you think were the two jerseys out front on the second floor of this foyer that I'm sitting at right now? One Longhorn and one Arizona State guy.
Well,
Who are the
one of two guys at Arizona State? It's either Jake Plummer or Pat Tillman.
Neither for Arizona State. It's okay.
Terrell Suggs.
Terrell Suggs, yeah. Terrell Suggs.
Earl Campbell?
No, not Earl, but close.
Ricky.
Right idea. Ricky, yeah. Ricky and Terrell Suggs jerseys out there on display right as you get off the second floor elevator here at the Hall of Fame.
Hey, by the way, we don't have the Sackle read this week, but it's take care of your Sackle New Year's 2025. But I do predict 5 Sackles Wednesday.
They are sponsoring in the new year. I do have news for you, Jerry. So they are going to be sponsoring in 2025.
What about Joy Mode?
No promises, Jerry. No promises.
A&M OU fan bases need Joy Mode right now.
Okay, yeah.
Those listening.
I hope Texas's offense uses Joy Mode in the third quarter.
They are.
That's what I hope.
They are, he says.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Bevo Holic with the super chat says, "Happy New Year." Well, happy New Year to you and all of our OTF viewers. We appreciate everybody out there, and thank you for the super chat. And then Jay Lee says, "I've been trying to think of or find a comparison for this Arizona State team. Is last year's Oklahoma State team from the Big 12 championship the best comparison?"
Better quarterback. I have a better quarterback right now than Oklahoma State had last year. Man,
that's a good question.
It is. The comp is hard because, look, they have a battery. They have a quarterback and running back that are pretty darn good, probably NFL players. And I think that makes them a harder comparison because we've seen heavy running back teams not necessarily have a quarterback. Let me think about that. A good comparison. You have one off the top of your head, Jerry?
I've said what they want to do from a run game standpoint is Kentucky, but we didn't see the real Kentucky this year. They run so many screens around their run game, though. It's a tough one. I mean, it's a tough one. I would say.
Is it Texas circa 2022, 2023, or before? Maybe not as much talent overall.
Somebody asked about TCU with Max Duggan and Kendre Miller.
TCU had more talent on that team.
Yeah.
Particularly on defense, because you got to remember they had all those legacy defenders from Gary Patterson's time. I would have half dozen of those guys get picked in the NFL draft on defense. It's an idea though. The quarterback running back combo is what is to watch for with because that means they can hit you one of two ways, right? They're not just a one-sided offense.
Daniel. That's Matt Campbell's best teams at Iowa State, potentially.
Purdy and Montgomery or Breece Hall. Maybe that's a real good one, actually.
From a personnel standpoint, that's not bad.
From a personnel, that's a real good one. And a 3-high defense as well, Jerry. I think that could be one, Daniel. Good one.
Clay K wants to know, how much of Sark's NFL experience do you think is an advantage for us as we progress through the playoffs?
I don't know. I don't see that really. I think where I'll tell you what we never talk about, what's big for all these teams as you advance, if you advance past this week, is your advanced scouting guys have to be awesome. And it may be underrated. Whoever that is has to be really good because you don't have as much time to prepare. And when I say prepare, you have more time between games than week in, week out of season. But Sark had 6 months to prepare for Michigan and Alabama. Then you have 30 days to prepare for a college football playoff game against Washington. This is much more fast-paced, fast-moving. And I think your scouting department, whoever does your advanced scouting department for opponents, has to be really strong here in the playoffs. I think that's one thing that people may be talking about in a couple of years that they aren't now, is you got to be really strong in your advanced scouting.
I'm going to slightly disagree with Jerry that it doesn't help for Sark to be in the pros, and not because of the advanced scouting. How many of these coaches have called 16 offensive game plans?
Yeah,
like Sark has. Nobody else. Maybe Georgia's, but he had to. Has Bobo called a 16 game a year plan at this point, Jerry? I don't think so. You see what I'm saying? I mean, like Dillingham hasn't. James Franklin hasn't. Who had? Boise hasn't. Sark is the only one I've seen.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So he's had 16 individual game plans before. Doesn't mean he's, the only one that can do it. I'm just saying he has a little bit of experience there. So I think that might actually help him a little bit concoct game plans.
That's a good time to bring up this question, which I hadn't looked at, but it's an awesome. Saw a crazy fact that Casey saw a crazy fact about the remaining teams in the CFP. James Franklin at 52 is the oldest remaining coach. That is very rare that guys are this young, this many of them in a college football playoff.
It's what happens when Saban gets displaced, right, Jerry?
Yeah.
Once it's a new guard coming in. I called Kenny Dillingham a whippersnapper a minute ago, but Franklin, Kirby Smart, clearly leading the way right now for young coaches. But Marcus Freeman, Steve Sarkisian, all of those guys, relatively young for the game of college football.
Yeah,
at an elite level too.
It's getting to be a young man's game through NIL and the recruiting calendar and whole portal calendar. It's getting to be a younger man's game. Somebody brought up, good point. I didn't even think about this. Chip Kelly is the other guy that's called 16 games.
There we go. Good one. But that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking in my head, right? Is, who's done that? I get Will Stein at Oregon did it, but he did it when he was at Lake Travis High School.
Right.
That's just a different type of situation. But I think that going deep into the playoffs or playing a lot of games in a season will help you do that.
I wanted to hit this. It was all because people are talking about this game because we actually have college football playoff tonight. Any guesses on Boise tonight? I like Penn State big, and I might be wrong. Easily could be wrong. I know people. Some people think it's James Franklin, so he's going to lose the game. I don't know. I think it's a big talent advantage for Penn State in this game, and at the right places. I think Drew Allar's actually really is coming into his own as a quarterback. That means perfect, but he's coming into his own as a second-year starter. And look, maybe Ashton Jeanty looks like Barry Sanders tonight, and I'm not saying he is because I don't think he is. But maybe he has one of those games. He had 192 in the 37-34 loss to Oregon week 2 of the season. He's going to have something like this because I don't think Maddox Madsen is beating Penn State. And I don't think their players on the perimeter are beating Penn State. So he's going to have a huge game. And Boise sacks the quarterback on their schedule. But can they stop the run on tonight's schedule? Because Penn State can run that ball at your butt now. I mean, Singleton and Katron Allen is a really good 1-2 punch in college football for a downhill running game. What, about 1,700 yards combined right in that area, and did about the same last year. Now a quarterback that has more experience and the best tight end in America, no offense to any other tight ends. Gunnar Helm's a great player, but Tyler Warren, even though he's a flex, he's a matchup nightmare. I don't think Boise State has enough. I think this game could get lopsided.
I think it's a 17-13 Penn State game. That kind of game. I unless Penn State breaks a couple long runs, Jerry. I mean, Penn State play in James Franklin. They either play it too close to the vest in big games, or they play it too open and end up turning the ball over.
Yeah, I hear you. I just don't know if Boise can stop that. I mean, like, Boise's given up big points this year to some people.
Okay. So I would say this: 17-13 or 31-13. It's that kind of game for me. I don't think Boise's offense, even with Jainty, is able to do what they want to do.
Yeah,
that's just my take on it. As they go into it tonight.
There's actually other interesting games today, by the way, Bobby.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's take a look at the games today. You got Alabama and Michigan to start off with at 11, followed by Louisville and Washington, Illinois and South Carolina, Baylor and LSU, and then, of course, the college football playoff, as we just discussed, Boise State and Penn State.
This may be the only time I've seen a chat just all in line cheering for Baylor in a game. So
everybody is.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. Alabama, Michigan, obviously interesting game. That's a played last year in the college football semifinal. A lot has changed, but the other thing is Kalen DeBoer. Hey, he's going up against Michigan 2 years in a row. See if he does better this game. But Louisville, Washington, is anybody going to watch? Probably not. Illinois, South Carolina, I will tune in because I think Brett Bielema does a really good job coaching that football team. I want to see with a month to prepare, what can they do against Lenore Sellers in his first bowl game. And I think Sellers is a potential great player, so I will tune into that a little bit. Baylor, LSU, everybody's cheering for Baylor in the chat. I think they're going to have a tough time.
Well, I don't think Baylor's not a team I've ever cheered for in my life. I just don't care who wins that game. I actually think Baylor's going to win it, though. I actually think that they've got a sense of who they're trying to become. And LSU, you can say what they've done in the portal, Jerry, all you want.
They're not playing tonight.
They're not playing tonight. And look, that team finished the season messed in the head, in my opinion. They have no clue who they are as a team right now. Now, maybe they'll end up that way and be okay, but my take on that is I think Baylor wins. I think South Carolina wins. Alabama, Michigan, though. If I don't know what to say other than if Alabama doesn't beat Michigan, Jalen Milroe maybe shouldn't go pro. How about that? I mean, Jalen Milroe, I don't think he's announced yet that he's going pro. They say that he's expected to, but I don't think he's announced yet. They don't beat Michigan. I don't know what he should do.
Yeah,
he needs to take a step, in my opinion.
So my opinion, and I think Jalen Miller is a really good player. If I'm DeBoer, I might hope he goes pro to get back to the guys that can run my system.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly right. That's what I'm trying to say.
Jalen Milroe, but he doesn't fit DeBoer's system.
It's no different than Jalen Hurts transferring to Oklahoma. What are you going to do?
Yeah, because I'm telling you, you don't bring a transfer redshirt quarterback from Washington to Alabama with you unless you think that guy's really good. Austin Mack. When you leave Washington and go to Alabama and you feel like you can get cream of the crop, you don't take your redshirting quarterback with you from Seattle to Tuscaloosa, knowing Julian saying the 5-star that signed with Bama under Saban is probably going to leave if you don't think that guy is a future NFL quarterback. They must think Austin Mack is very, very, very good. That doesn't make sense otherwise.
They also have Ty Simpson there too. So they've got a couple of different guys that are running out there.
Let's jump back into some super chats as they continue to roll in here. And Edmund Lee, thank you for yours. He says, good morning, OTF and Longhorn family. I'm drinking my Texas pecan this morning from New Braunfels, Texas. Thinking how OTF has grown this past 4 years to 67.7 thousand. It is amazing, I will say, Edmund. What a ride, what a team when Jerry Hamilton had to leave for a while before the return. Happy New Year's and hook 'em.
Woo! It has been a ride. Jerry's back in the saddle now too, by the way. Been here since February, so excited about that. We got a lot in store. Already been trying to work on some things that are coming for the new year, actually. So hope you guys are here for it because we're going to continue to try to grow this channel and grow on Texas football into becoming the place for Texas fans to enjoy Texas Longhorn football.
By the way, I think this is one hell of a comment. Football Texas. Bobby and Jerry, doesn't college football need Boise State and ASU to lose for the reason that we need to end auto buys for conference champions? I think it's going to change anyways, but I 100% agree with this. I think this playoff committee is about to go to their playoff rankings is how they're going to seed teams. I think that's what's going to happen.
And they should.
So, yes, if Penn State, Texas win, it drives home that point. Because the reality is Oregon has got an unbelievable – if Texas beats Arizona State, Oregon's got a really tough path to get to a national championship.
Unbelievable.
They got to beat Ohio State and Texas back to back.
They're going to have to beat three top five teams.
Georgia has to beat Notre Dame and Penn State back to back. I mean, yeah, it's a playoff. I get it, but the seeding is jacked up this year. And I think Penn State and Texas winning games will drive the nail in there.
In the coffin. Yeah, I would add, I think just one of them has to win, Penn State or Texas. I think both of them will, but only one has to. The reality of it is for Texas to have an easier path to the semifinals than Georgia or Oregon is not fair. Texas didn't win its conference.
Yeah.
Now, Texas didn't do anything about this. Texas didn't set up the path or do anything like that. So I'm not, burdening Texas with somebody else's failure. But the reality is Georgia right now should be enjoying a better path to the semifinals than the Longhorns, and they're not.
Yeah, by the way, so it's interesting the playoff conversation was like Nate Russ says 12 teams is plenty, too many blowouts, which I agree with what he's saying, and I agree with other people who have said it in the chat too. But the NCAA basketball tournament has blowouts. Like, it needs to get to 16 teams. I really believe the college football playoff needs to be 16 teams. There's no buys. If we're going to do this, let's do it. So let's just get to 16 and play this thing out. There's going to be some blowouts along the way it happens. But, again, I think 12 – I just don't like 12. And I think it needs to go to 16. Let's just play this thing out. Do it like the FCS.
Justin Yarbrough says early enrollees come in the 13th, and if we're still playing, what will be the plan? What will the plan be for them? Will they get to practice with the team? If so, how beneficial will that be?
They get to practice, Jerry, but they have the first couple of days they can't be in pads.
Yeah, so my inclination is if Texas is playing on January 20th, which we hope we're still talking about this, and these guys arrive on January 12th or 13th, they have to do a physical, and then there's a 48-hour window after that. So that already takes you to 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. I mean, would they even practice them at that point? Probably not, but they could be around it.
All right, before we move on to our next one, Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everybody out there about Mark Saunders.
Yeah, man. Look, according to Scatabo, everybody Texas fan needs this insurance of Mark Saunders, man. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? From Cam Scatabo running you over. Here's some good news. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders serves the Austin and Round Rock area and the entire state of Texas. He's the only insurance agent you'll need. Everything from your home, car, boat, motorcycle, RV, ATV, anything Cam Scatabo will run over. Call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571, Are you in good hands? You'll be in great hands with the over 35 years of experience that Texas alum Mark Saunders brings to the table. Again, if you're looking for someone local to the Austin or Round Rock area or the entire state of Texas, give them a call, 512-218-8571.
Thanks, Mark.
And we have another super chat here. This one coming back to Edmund Lee for a second. It says Texas 37, Arizona State 24. Just win and hook them.
You think Arizona State gets up in the 20s in this one, Jerry?
So I do, but I think it could be in a different ways, right? A turnover, they get a short field, a score late. But one thing I will say is Texas is facing potential pro NFL quarterbacks now. Klubnik, and I think Levitt's got a chance to be. Very talented guy. Really believes in himself. By the way, his whole chip is because of Oregon. But I want to put this out there. He's from West Linn, Oregon. I think the whole chip, he was a 4-star rated guy. He wasn't a 2-star, 3-star that nobody didn't offer. I mean, he was a power 4 offered player, but you know who didn't offer him? Probably the ones he wanted. So that's where his chip comes from, and I like that about him. But Texas is facing a quarterbacks now that I think are worth 7 to 10 points a game. Now, maybe with Jordan Tyson out, maybe Arizona State's offensive line can't hold up in pass pro, and it's just a tougher game for him because Cade Klubnik had 3 future NFL receivers that are tied in that may play in the league too, and probably a little better offensive line. But I do think those guys are worth a touchdown, 10 points in a game. So I can see it, yeah.
Hey, Bobby, before I get to this next super chat here, Charlie needs some help from you. He says, I'm on the plane for Hotlanta, already signed up for this afternoon's OTF happy hour, but I can't remember the location.
Yeah, the name of it is Botica, Botica, and it's in the Buckhead area of Atlanta, which is really adjacent to downtown. That's Botica, Botica. We'll get started around 3 o'clock, stay until whenever, and hope everybody comes out and joins us. We had the SEC Championship happy hour out there as well. It was a nice place, a good place to gather for all Longhorn fans, kind of centrally located, in my opinion.
Yeah, hopefully that helps you out there before your flight takes off. And Colin Davis says that Levitt legs scare me. I hear people saying he's a functional runner, but when I watch him, he looks really fast and quick. Maybe just a few notches below Mike Hawkins in running ability.
I think there's a lot of similarities to Cade Klubnik with this guy. And the difference is he's physically not as developed as Cade. And he's been nicked up. He missed the Cincinnati game. So is Dillingham going to put himself in harm's way in this game? I mean, I think you have to throw the kitchen sink at this game. And with that, I mean, trick plays, going for it on some 4th downs, which all these guys seem to do. But at the same time, as athletic as I do think Levitt is, he's more than a functional athlete at the position. I'm not sure they can put him in harm's way necessarily in this game because Texas, they get after quarterbacks now, 41 sackles this year. I mean, that's a big number, and they have a lot more pressure than that. So I think there's similarities to Klubnik athletically. And I'm not saying he could windmill dunk a basketball like the legend of Klubnik, but from a movement skills standpoint, but he's also about 15 pounds lighter than Klubnik is right now, I believe.
And Charlie, I thought you put in a super chat, but don't see anything attached to it. If you'll just send that in regular, I will make sure that we fix that up for you, and we'll come back to it. And then Jeff Carey wants to know, has Sark discussed his 3rd quarter problem and maybe the halftime adjustments?
I think he's definitely discussed it multiple times, Jeff. His take on it is he recognizes it and is trying to do something about it. He felt like he had addressed it somewhat against Clemson, but then a drive stalled out after having 1st and goal on the 3. I think that he's trying to get through that. He thinks you just have to do more reps. That's been his conversation with his team. He's talked about it. He hasn't denied it. I don't know that it's halftime adjustments, though. I'm going to be honest about that. Sark does a pretty good job. I think it's more about mental focus from the team as much as it is that. And I would add the other piece of it, red zone efficiency for Texas has been down. the second half of this year. And I think that's been a lot of it's been come in the third quarter, frankly. And that's because a team starts understanding what Texas is trying to do to them. It's not halftime adjustments by Sark. It's halftime adjustments after Texas has already gotten off to a pretty big lead. And so they're finally catching up to what Texas is trying to do to them.
All right. And I think Charlie's super chat was actually the help that he needed now that I go back and look. So hopefully that was right, Charlie. Hopefully we got you set up there. So if not, my apologies. And then we have one from MJF. And MJF says 2025. Here's the Colts health. Thank you very much. And Horns and SEC trending up. And of course, A&M and Oklahoma down. What's the over under on number of fourth downs that Arizona State goes for? 5?
Well, look, I think Dillingham's a smart football coach, so it's going to be where you're at in the game. What does the game look like in his estimation? It's not going to be anything totally dumb like we've seen maybe in Lubbock and even Penn State against SMU. Dillingham's smarter than that. I think Dillingham, it'll be smart and calculated. It's how does he feel about the game? Where are they at in the game? What is the game looking like? The game within the game at that point in time. I don't think he's just going to go out there and go for it to go for it. He's done too much positive.
Yeah, I actually think I think the over under is 3, and if it's over, Texas is in really good shape. Really good shape. That would be my comment on it.
And then we have one here from Blake. Thank you, Blake. A different Blake than earlier. Todd McShay and all the scouts he spoke to think that Quinn needs another year. What are your thoughts?
I don't think Quinn's agent thinks that, or Quinn's family thinks that. So that's my initial thought. I would add this. I mean, how many more years does he need? He's had 3 years as a starter.
Yeah.
I don't know that there are going to be many 4-year starters in the NFL draft. So I would McShay can think he needs another year. That's great. I don't think it's reality. I think that we got to deal with what's in front of us. And I think Quinn Ewers headed the NFL draft this year. And
look, this is the draft you want to be in. I mean, this is a draft to go out on your pro day against Air and complete 98% and look great and see if that can outweigh maybe some of the tape this year. Because this is not a great quarterback draft. This is the one you want to be in. If you can't stick in this one, you got issues. Just being real.
And then we have one here from David Parcell. Thank you, David. He says, this is a loaded question.
Wow.
Rank the Texas coaches and include the strength coach. And if we need to circle back, we can always do that to give you all some time to think, because that's quick.
That's just so hard because there's so many. And like, I could do it from a recruiting standpoint, just strictly on recruiting, but coaching is really hard because, I mean, I think, for example, I think Tashard Choice is a really good coach and recruiter, but is he a better coach than Pete Kwiatkowski, who is a coordinator? Not as a coach, but maybe as so it's really hard, David, to do that, in my opinion, right now. I think that's really, really difficult, maybe impossible, because you have too many categories of what it means to be a coach on the college level. I mean, if you're just talking about position coaches or coordinators, et cetera, I think it's too difficult. Jerry?
Yeah, I can't. I would need a day to think about that.
Yeah.
I would rate Becton ahead of Mad Dog, though, for all time.
Oh, MP Houston, we thank you for both of your super chats here. This is a two-parter, guys, so bear with me. Can y'all talk about the importance of the 2007 Holiday Bowl against Arizona State? My recollection was that it was a key turning point to the great runs that we had in 08 and 09, following post-champ hangovers in 06 and 07. And then MP adds, and sorry if it's already been discussed, I've been in New Orleans.
The sad thing is about that game, and I'm not trying to be an ass, but the one thing I will always remember about that game was Chris Jesse coming onto the field and touching the football. For whatever reason, that's the one thing that's always dominated my thought when I think about the game, because it was so funny. And then Mac's reaction to it. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was important because Mac questioned his team's toughness heading into that game a little bit. And I do think that helped turn the tide back.
I do think it was a precursor to what we saw, the offensive explosion in 08 and 09, where Colt had been a good quarterback as a freshman, not great, but good for a redshirt freshman. Then it had a backwards sophomore year, if you remember that, Jerry.
Yeah.
And so this was the end of his sophomore year. And I thought he played well. And that game was kind of a launching point more for him, I think, to say that he's going to be an elite player as opposed to the team as a whole. Because Arizona State did score points in that game a little bit against Texas. They had a good offensive coordinator, good offensive game plan. Dirk Cutter, I think, was the guy for them. But what I'll remember about that most is that it actually wasn't the team as much as it was Colt McCoy deciding he's going to be a force as opposed to just a piece of the puzzle for Texas. Because to that point, he was steering the ship. He wasn't a force. He was a force against Arizona State in that game.
And by the way, that was a good Arizona State team.
Yes.
That was a legitimate good team they had.
Well, look, they were ranked 11 in the country going into that game.
Yep. And something a lot of people don't remember about that game, Texas rushed for 300 yards and held Arizona State to only 26.
Can you pull up the box score from that? I thought from that game.
Give me just a second here.
Jamal Charles. Who was it? Jamal went.
Yeah, it was Jamal Charles. He rushed. He had 27 carries for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep. Makes sense.
But yeah, then they held Arizona State to only 26. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. 5 turnovers. I thought Arizona State turned it over a lot in that game. I couldn't remember if it was that many. All right, cool.
Good stuff. All right, we got some more super chats to come in, and for some reason it wouldn't pull the stats up for each player on that. My apologies. This next one here from Jerry's Jack Links. He says, I haven't gotten to the tailgate with y'all, and I'm excited to do so at the Cotton Bowl on January 10th. So Jerry's Jack Links looking ahead a little bit, Bobby.
Heck yeah.
I'm ready for it too. We'll be there. But Texas has to win first. That's first things first. Longhorns have to take care of business against the Sun Devils tomorrow. We are now, by the way, 27 hours away from kickoff? Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
A little less than 27.
Yeah. Team will be getting off the bus here in about 5 minutes tomorrow.
Yeah. I like it.
A good question here, Jack Burton. And there's a two-parter of this. Somebody asked earlier in the chat, who will rush for more yards tomorrow, Scattaboo or Trey Wisner? I actually think that's a really good question. I'm going with Wisner, which I could be horribly wrong. Then can the Horns hold Skittleboo, as Jack Burton says, to 60 yards? If Skittleboo doesn't have 75 rushing yards tomorrow, Arizona State's in deep poo. Because that means they're not possessing the ball.
Oh, gosh.
Can we look at the stats here? I want to look at this, right? So this is the Texas defense versus the Arizona State offense for tomorrow. Arizona State scoring 33 plus a game. Texas giving up only 13. Averaging 423 yards. Texas only giving up 261. Passing yards, 224. Texas only giving up 156. Rushing. That's the one where we keep coming down to this stat line. What's it going to look like? Arizona State, among the nation's best, only giving up or rushing for right at 200 yards a game. Texas only giving up 100 by comparison. Jerry, for this game to be competitive, what is Arizona State need to rush for, in your opinion? Is it 150, 175, or does it need to be the full 200 or something less? I mean, I'm trying to think through this. I think if they don't go for 150, I just don't see them beating Texas down the field with its receivers otherwise. You agree with that?
Yeah, because look, I think that stat for Arizona State is skewed big time because they played, I think the average rush defense they've played against this year is like 78, 80 in the country. Somebody might have the exact number. But I mean, I think 4 have been outside the top 100 or even 5. So they haven't played against good defenses against the run. So their number is higher than what it would be if they played maybe the Texas SEC schedule, obviously, but that's not even fair because they don't recruit those type of players. But to your point, 150 to 175. And I say that because that means they're possessing the football. And if they're possessing the football, then it's a lower possession game and it's going to be a fourth quarter game. If they rush for 150, 160, unless it's all late and it's a blowout, if they do that with a consistent like 40, 45 yards a quarter type of thing, that means they're possessing the football enough to limit possessions potentially and get the game into the fourth quarter. I think it's a must for them. There's 2 musts for them tomorrow. They have to run the ball effectively. And I know what ASU fans are saying. Georgia ran it downhill on Texas, so are we. Okay, we'll see. But the other thing is if there's 2 things. They have to run the ball effectively enough to control time of possession. They're a big time of possession team. And through that, the run game and the screen game. And then 2, they got to get pressure on Quinn somehow. If they don't do either of those things tomorrow, mud hole.
Yeah, it'll be hard. It'll be hard for them to compete otherwise. Hey, Blake, we know you got to go, bud. You got to go take care of a doctor's appointment for us. Thank you, Longhorns. We know you got to get going and do that and take care of yourself. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. Coffee and football, same time, same place.
Yep. And guys, I'm going to leave you with this one from Seth real quick. Jerry, keep it real with us like you normally do. Spicy mayo or regular mayo for the corn dog. He prefers spicy. And I'm out of here, guys.
Oh, there he took off early on us.
Yeah, DJ Campbell and I agree. It's just Hellman's.
It's just Hellman's. Jeremy Ryder, Bobby, any chance this team is looking past ASU, or are they dialed in? There's always that chance, Jerry, but it's not something I got the sense of yesterday. I felt like, and I will say this: has there been a team Texas has looked past this year, in your opinion? They've been pretty dialed in all season long. I mean, maybe they look past. I don't know, Vanderbilt or Oklahoma a little, even though they beat the tar out of Oklahoma. They didn't come out on fire against Oklahoma, though. Any thoughts on Texas? I just don't see Texas not being dialed in any at all this year.
No. Well, I think, look, it's hard to get emotionally for every game, right? And it's almost impossible in a 12, 13 game regular season. But this is the playoffs. Sound like Jim Moore playoffs. This is the playoffs. These guys are dialed in. This team's goal wasn't to get to the playoff this year. Now, I'm not questioning if a team's dialed in. I don't care who the opponent is. Their goal was not to get to the playoff. Their goal was to win a national championship or play for a national championship, get a step further than they did last year, play for the national championship, see what happens. I think these guys are going to be dialed in. I think it's, when you have good culture on a team that almost climbed the mountaintop last year, I don't really think you have to worry about them being dialed in when the games get really meaningful. That's why I think at Georgia, Notre Dame's going to get Georgia's absolute best shot, kind of like Texas has. These teams, they get dialed in, man. I just don't worry about it.
Jerry, I want to talk next about the Texas offense versus the Arizona State defense, and then also finish up with a couple questions before we let people go. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsor of College Football Playoff Week, and that is Duck Camp. Duck Camp gear is made for the people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, and football to watch. They like doing all that stuff, so they built a company centered on it, based in Austin, and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. Duck Camp gear has been tested from the backcountry of Alaska to the dove fields of Texas, It will stand up to the toughest of conditions, but also happily sit down beside a fire and drink a few cold ones with you if that's more your speed. Their iconic Game Series hats feel as timeless as the hats found in your grandpa's garage. Be sure to check them out. The new Mallard hat and Pointer hat in the clay colorway, pretty much our cherished burnt orange color. Here's 2 great seasons, y'all. Yes, hunting, fishing, and football. Shop hunting and fishing gear at duckcamp.com. Thank y'all so much. All right, Jerry, let's talk a little bit about this Texas offense versus the Arizona State defense, if you would. Look at these stats as we look at it. Texas averaging really similarly to Arizona State, both averaging 33 points a game on offense, but Arizona State giving up 21 points a game, considerably more than the Longhorns. Texas averaging 448 yards a game. Arizona State giving up 330 plus passing yards, rushing yards. Arizona State actually a decent or better than average rush defense. Are they going to try to gang up and stop the run against Texas and make Quinn Ewers beat them? That's a question I have for you. Is that going to be their defensive game plan?
It is if it's me. And look, I've said it before. Early in the game, and Quinn's been better at this A&M game, even the Georgia game in spots. When Texas is really tough to defend, is the same thing I'd make Quinn do in a game early. Outside the numbers, give up some little outside leverage, make him make the throws, intermediate and vertical outside the numbers along the sidelines early in a game. And if he hits them, you tip your cap. But that's what I would do if I was Arizona State. I'm not saying that's what they will do because the reality of this game is whoever doesn't stop the run is at a distinct disadvantage. If Texas is running the ball on Arizona State like they did against Clemson, what's Arizona State's path to victory? Because if Texas, if you look up and Texas has 200 rushing yards midway through the third quarter, and then Arizona State starts getting tired. I mean, that's whoever they have to be able to limit Texas in the run game. If Texas has the success running they did against Clemson, then Arizona State's got to figure out a way to win in a shootout against a team that's much more talented. I don't think they have the horses for that. So that run defense is interesting to me with Arizona State as well. Let's see where they're really at. We look at the numbers and that's what we do. Let's see where they're really at because they just haven't played the bigger athletes up front like they're facing tomorrow. That's going to be the challenge for them. And it's going to have to be with stunts, twists. They're going to have to bring run blitzes. They're going to have to do they can't just line up and play against Texas. Texas can line up and play against Arizona State. That's a huge advantage trying to stop the run. But to your point, Bobby, I think they're going to have to take chances, but I would almost give up some outside leverage and say, all right, Quinn, throw it outside the numbers on the boundary there early in the game. Prove to us you're going to make those throws today.
And see if we can't get a pick or something positive to happen, like Georgia did with the Isaiah Bond interception. All right, Sonny V, think the ASU chirping helps keep Texas focused. Either that or it's bait, right, Jerry? That was our initial fear, or not fear, but our initial thought. It was nothing more than bait to try to bait the Texas defense.
The late hit on Sam Levitt after a 3rd and 12 incompletion for a first down to keep a drive going. The targeting on Cam Scatabo by Anthony Hill in the second quarter, and he's out for the game. Texas can't get baited here. They can't because it is bait.
Absolutely. I agree. This from Isaiah Stewart. Over under 3.5 sacks for the Texas D. The defense is hungry to prove Quinn Ewers is the much better quarterback. What's your take on that, Jerry? You think Texas is going to be able to get to Sam Levitt that much, even though they do so much in the screen game?
That's going to be the question. So if Texas stuffs the run, then Arizona State's game plan's kind of taken away. They can't just run. I know they throw screens 25% of the time, but then they have to start taking more risks down the field. So Sam Levitt how many times he gets hit and sacked, I think is going to have a lot to do with how Arizona State runs the ball in the first quarter and a half of this game. Because again, like what you saw with like the Arizona State Iowa State game, Iowa State had 3 turnovers in the third quarter. That game started getting away. Then Rocco Beck, Iowa State runs the ball pretty effectively. Couldn't do it. They just had to drop back and throw it. If Texas can put Arizona State in that situation at any point in this game, then I don't think the Arizona State pass pro will hold up.
This from Drew Lockhart, Bobby, Jerry. Who's your MVP for the game tomorrow morning? I'm going to go with Trey Wisner. I do think that it sets up really well for him as long as he stays healthy, right, Jerry? As long as he stays healthy throughout the game. Otherwise, I'm going to go with Quinn Ewers. I was asked this yesterday as well. Like, if we had a unsung hero of this game, who might it be that we're not looking for? Kind of like Jaden Blue was against Clemson. I'm going to go with Ryan Wingo, even though Isaiah Bond is expected to play. I think the young freshman from St. Louis is on the cusp of making some pretty big plays for the Longhorns. Who do you have as MVP tomorrow, Jerry?
I have Quinn because I just, unless Arizona State does something that they've done totally different than what they've done this year, they just don't get enough pressure on the quarterback. And we know the best way to beat and slow down Texas. And I haven't seen that from Arizona State. And if Quinn and Sark have all day for the plays to develop and Quinn to make the throws, then Texas has too much talent. And so I'm going to go with Quinn in this game.
Okay. I want to say this also as well. Before we let you guys go here, we got a couple more questions we're going to get in. I am at the College Football Hall of Fame. Make sure you check out the College Football Hall of Fame. If you're in Atlanta this week, it should be fun for people that are true college football fans. A lot of Longhorns stuff and memorabilia. As I mentioned earlier, a Ricky Williams jersey right as you walk out of the second floor foyer where we're located here today. We'll be back tomorrow, same place, same time for Coffee and Football. We have a number of different shows lined up for you this afternoon. Jerry, you've got a recruiting breakdown where you're going to do a Q&A not only on 26, but also some portal information. That'll be later today. We have both coaches' interviews, Steve Sarkisian and Kenny Dillingham, and then we finish it up with a live stream later tonight. In the meantime, I'll be bopping around a little bit in some meetings and whatnot in Atlanta with folks, and then also back at Botica, a restaurant in the Buckhead district of Atlanta from 3 to 6. The Atlanta Texas X's are hosting a welcome to Atlanta party for Longhorn fans. We went to the same place a couple of weeks ago when the Longhorns played Georgia in the SEC championship game. Had a really great time. Hope you guys all who are in town can join us. Again, you do not have to be a Texas grad or a Texas former student to actually go to any Texas X's events. All you have to do is support the Longhorns. So I'm going to put that out there. Jerry, let's finish this off with something you asked and talked about early in the discussion based on a conversation or what you heard Todd McShay, the former ESPN NFL analyst, draft analyst, talk about how many Longhorns will be selected in the 2025 NFL draft.
So there was a mock draft I looked at over the weekend. Texas had 9 in 3 rounds. So Todd McShay on a podcast said 12 to 13. So I would say, look, it's pretty easy. Quinn, Isaiah Bond, Kelvin Banks, Cam Williams, Jake Majors. I mean, you're at 5 there. If Matthew Golden comes out, that's 6. Defensively, you have Barron Sorrell 7, Alfred Collins 8, Jade Barron 9, Michael Taft potentially 10, Andrew Makuba 11. Then you get to, Vernon be drafted. That would be 12. I mean, what does Trey Moore do? So it's not hard to come up with that 12 to 13 number. Jaden Blue, if he comes out, could he just run a 4.28 at a pro day, 4.30 in a pro day and get drafted in the 6th round as a boutique player? I think that 12 to 13 number is going to be accurate.
Yeah, the thing that was written on Texas Football today by a fan was actually a conversation. It was actually yesterday.
Helms, sorry, DJ Campbell.
Yeah, DJ Campbell. Yeah, OTF member was talking to an Aggie fan, and he relayed his conversation. And he said, look, we're going to have 12 to 13 draft picks. We had 11 last year, and the Aggies like, oh, you're going to lose a lot. Yeah, but we're coming back with more guys that are similarly situated. And the reality of it is, Jerry, Texas isn't. They're going to have more guys again next year. I don't know if they'll have 12 or 13, but Texas and the NFL draft are getting real acquainted with one another right now. And hopefully that's one of the things that carries Texas forward tomorrow when they meet up with Arizona State, is a talent disparity across the board. Maybe not at certain positions heavily, but a general feeling that Texas has the better talent and can overwhelm the Sun Devils a little bit on Wednesday. All right, Jerry, you have anything before we let folks go here today and get going with our Tuesday?
I do. Have fun, but be safe tonight. So everybody's on this chat tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go. Good one, Jerry. I agree. Happy New Year's to everyone. Happy New Year's Eve. If you're going to watch the ball drop or whatever you do tonight, have fun. And hopefully you get ready for tomorrow when the Longhorns take on Arizona State at noon. All right, Jerry. For Jerry Hamilton, our producer, Matt Hutchison, as well as Blake Monroe, who had to leave us a little early, I'm Bobby Burton, and that's been this edition of Coffee and Football, the last one for 2024. Tomorrow, 2025 starts. Hook 'em.